Good morning and welcome to Veterans Heartbeat on the Pulse of the Veteran, where we discuss issues of health, happiness, opportunity, and well-being of interest to the veteran community, their families, and the community who honors them.
Good morning and welcome to another episode of Veterans Heartbeat, brought to you by River, the Rural Institute for Veterans Education and Research. My name is Jason Zencraft. My co-host Ed Lisowski is here with me, and he is the Executive Director of River. We welcome you to a weekly wide-ranging discussion of issues, events, opportunities, and needs in our veteran community. Morning, Ed. How you doing?
Morning, Jason.
We'd also like to thank our sponsor, Farside Signs. They create amazing-looking vehicle graphics that will drive traffic to your business. Follow them on the web, Instagram, and Facebook, or just stop on by.
Good morning. This morning we've got Ann Scott from Team Rubicon on the phone. She runs the Montana State part of Team Rubicon. Good morning, Ann. How are you doing this morning?
I am doing great. How are you, Ed?
Doing good. So let's start out with telling our listeners, what is Team Rubicon?
Team Rubicon is a disaster response organization. Our tagline is disasters are our business, veterans are our passion. So we're veteran-led, but we welcome civilians as well to join us.
You respond to disasters in the United States, the world. Where do you respond?
We do respond to disasters here in the United States and across the world. For example, right now we are still in Florida doing cleanup after the hurricane down there, both chainsaw operations and mucking out flooded houses. We have just wrapped up a medical relief operation in the Maldives after the super typhoon that went through there. We'll probably be, and we are spinning up operations in California right now as we speak, actually. We've got people out on the ground doing disaster assessments right now.
What is it that you guys go in and do? You said medical. That sounds like you've got doctors.
We do. We have doctors and nurses and paramedics, EMTs. Anyone with any medical certification can join the international team if they'd like. We are World Health Organization certified, and I believe we are the only nonprofit in the United States to be WHO certified. Because of that certification, we have some pretty stringent qualifications that people have to meet to be a part of our international team. There's not only the medical certifications, but you have to have all of the relevant vaccines and other medical qualifications.
What is Team Rubicon doing in Montana right now?
Well, at the very second, we're not doing anything in Montana. We did do a cut day not too long ago where we were out with chainsaws doing some thinning operations in coordination with the Five Valleys Land Trust. This is a partnership we've had now for 2 years with the Five Valleys. They have a piece of property that is open to the public out at Rock Creek, which is 30 minutes east of Missoula. And we do fire mitigation for them, and in return, we have an area to train. So we'll probably be doing another fire mitigation operation and chainsaw training class at the very last weekend of April of 2019. That's what we're planning right now. Okay. We'll also have some other classes throughout the winter. Those are all in the planning stages right now. We'll be doing things like core operations, which is how to properly muck out a flooded house, and disaster assessments, which is how to look at somebody's house and see what kind of work needs to be done and what capabilities we're going to need to work on it.
So how did you get involved in Team Rubicon?
You know, I don't remember exactly how I got involved, but I believe it was an ad on Facebook way back in 2014. And I went out to do a fire cleanup after the big fires in 2014 in Pateros, Washington. And I showed up. Nobody knew I was coming. But by the end of it, a couple of the guys from Colorado sat me down and said, "Hey, you're the only person we know from Montana. How would you like to be our state administrator?" And I said, "Sure, why not?" So I've been doing it for a while. We've gotten much better organized now. People understand who you are when you show up at one of our operations.
I kind of laugh because I know that you're Air Force veteran, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Well, you should have went in the Navy because you know what Navy stands for, don't you?
No.
Never again volunteer yourself.
Yeah, well, certainly, I learned never to volunteer, but, hey, the thing that makes it worthwhile volunteering for Team Rubicon is that you get back that sense of team spirit, for lack of a better term. You're part of a bigger mission, but these are your tribe. These are people that you know. These are people that you're instantly going to connect with because we all have a shared experience. Even those who are civilians, and there's quite a few, about 30% of our people now are civilians, have no affiliation with the military. Even those folks, you're going to connect with them on that level because we're all here to do the same thing, and that's help others and have a good time while we're doing it.
Well, I know that you guys have had a lot of fun doing some of your projects. Tell me some of your experiences on going out and doing some of the disaster reliefs.
Sure. I was just in North Carolina this last month for a week. So when you go out on a Team Rubicon mission like that to one of these big national operations, Team Rubicon flies you out. They pay all the costs involved. And it's kind of for an Air Force veteran, it's not anything like the deployment I've done, but it'll seem familiar to those of you who are Army or Marines. You're on cots in a big warehouse, or maybe you're in a bunkhouse where you've got 16 bunk beds all set up into a trailer. And so you're now got, 16 brand new friends that you're, up close and personal with. There's usually either a tent or, sometimes it's a gymnasium or a warehouse where we all have meals together. Breakfast will be at a certain time every morning. Then there's a big morning brief where we split up into strike teams, and you get your assignment for the day. You pack a lunch and go out, and you're out doing your mission all day, which when I was down in New Bern, North Carolina, I was running a chainsaw all day. And I'm an instructor for chainsaw operations, so I was teaching people how to use one safely and more efficiently. So we're out cutting trees down all day and talking to people, the survivors. It's usually rather uplifting thing to do, to talk to the survivors afterwards. Sometimes their stories are difficult to hear, but they are so grateful for whatever you can do that it's really a wonderful experience to talk to some of these folks. Then after you work all day and get covered with either wood glitter or muck, if you're mucking out a house, you come back, take a shower, and we all sit down to dinner together. There's usually, we try to always have a campfire afterwards where we all sit around, crack open a beverage. We do allow limited adult beverages. They are limited. And sit around the campfire and tell stories to each other. And it allows you to have a real connection with a whole new group of friends. I have literally hundreds of Facebook friends now from across the nation. most of whom I've met in person through this organization, deploying out.
What are some of the qualifications to get involved with Team Rubicon?
We don't really have qualifications per se. What you have to be willing to do is, one, sign up. We'll need a little basic information from you, telephone number, email, those kinds of things. You'll have to take some classes. There's a Team Rubicon specific class. It's all online. And then there's 2 FEMA courses that we require. And really, that's so that you know the terminology involved with disaster response. It's so every organization works under the National Incident Management System. And that's just so that we all work under a common framework. We all know what we're talking about when we talk to each other. And then there's a background check. And every single reputable disaster response organization does require a background check. We know some veterans have some brushes with the law. We're not looking for angels. And any issues that may come up are looked at only by the very top people in the organization. And the vast majority of those people are still allowed to participate as well. At the same time, we certainly have to be a little bit careful because we cannot bring any, we can't bring a disaster to a disaster. That wouldn't be fair to the disaster. That's just not fair to disaster survivors. So that's why that's required. Right now, we're actually there. If you want to participate and you just can't get through those FEMA courses, because I'll be honest with you, the FEMA courses are pretty boring. They're simple but boring. You can participate in our Houston rebuild effort right now. We'll fly you down for a week. You can help build a house. And all you need to do for that one is the background check and the Team Rubicon online training. The FEMA stuff you can do later if you actually want to go out for a disaster response.
Yeah, I've signed up. I've done the background check, passed that, did all the things, but I have not done the FEMA courses.
Yeah, they are a little painful sometimes.
Are you planning on doing things here to build camaraderie within the veterans community?
We've had limited success with socials, so we tend not to do those anymore. We tend to do training events. And then because of the way Montana is, the way it's spread out, what we'll do is whenever we have a training event, we're always going to provide some place for people to sleep and meals, so that we can have people hang out and, do the kind of campfire culture kind of thing that we try to encourage. But we don't generally do just social events anymore. We are open to doing other projects. If someone has a project that needs to be done that takes physical labor, I'm certainly happy to work with somebody to set that up.
So if somebody out there has something that needs to be done, you're willing to work with them on that basis?
Depending on what it is, yes. If we're talking like no-kidding construction, that's really not something that we're set up to do. We're not experts. We're not certified. We're not builders. But if there's, say, something we've done in a lot of parts of the country is help build handicapped ramps for veterans' houses. We can't pull permits. We're not going to do the design for that. But if somebody else is going to organize that kind of thing, I could probably get some people together to help.
So if we've got veterans out there that are needing something happening with their house, you can provide the labor potentially, but not the organization.
I can certainly help organize such a thing, but we aren't capable of being the lead on a construction project.
You've been at this for several years now. Let's hear some of the funny stories.
Funny stories that are okay for, well, certainly after, during the flooding this spring, I don't know how funny it is, but it was really fabulous how many people came out to help us out, help us fill sandbags. We had a couple of thousand volunteers, and in particular, our last day really was funny because our last day of filling sandbags was the first day of Maggot Fest, the big rugby festival. So that last day, we told people, all of our great volunteers, we said, hey, don't show up because we've got rugby players inbound. And sure enough, boy, those guys really, and gals, really showed up. And it was interesting. Some of the things that people were wearing, some of the things that people were doing. It was definitely entertaining. Rugby players are a whole different breed.
What are some of the reasons that if I'm a veteran and I want looking at something I want to volunteer with, why would I want to get involved with Team Rubicon?
Well, there's a couple of reasons. First of all, if you have any desire to be involved in disaster relief or disaster response, you really should get affiliated with an organization ahead of time because being a spontaneous volunteer, somebody who just decides right after a disaster happens that they want to help, that's not the most efficient thing to do. It's better to be affiliated and get trained up so that you know what you're doing. It's so much more effective for everyone involved. So that's one reason. If you ever had any desire to help out, you should get involved now and get your training done. One of the other reasons to get involved in Team Rubicon is we're a lot of fun. You'll be doing something good for the community and having a good time. You'll make connections with new and different people that you will have never met through anything else. And you have the potential of, flying to somewhere new in the country to help people, or even out of the country if you're on the international team. It's a way to get out of your comfort zone, but safely because you've got a whole team behind you.
Is there any skills that you're really looking for in your team?
Well, certainly we're always looking for international folks to do the medical thing. We love people who have chainsaw skills. We do require you to take all the Team Rubicon training, even if you're an expert sawyer, just because it's an insurance kind of thing more than anything else, but we love to have expert sawyers. There's always work for chainsaw people. And certainly anyone who's got any experience in construction is really, really helpful when we're doing muck-outs or cleanups after disasters because any knowledge you have of how houses are constructed is really, really helpful when you're tearing one apart.
I can imagine. It's not as easy as it looks, is it?
No, but it can be pretty. It can be very. What's the right word here? Uplifting to smash a set of cabinets to pieces.
I can imagine that could be a lot of fun. So, you've been to North Carolina, you've been to Texas, you've been to Washington. Man, you're traveling all over the place.
Yep, and I'm probably going to go to California next, or, since the earthquake happened this morning, maybe I'll end up in Alaska.
Well, there you go. So let's talk about the international folks. Are you looking for psychologists? Are you looking for what?
We're looking for any medical personnel. Usually we're concentrating more on the first response for those kinds of things, not so much the mental health side of it. But that doesn't mean that we won't need that in certain situations. For example, we did a long-term medical response in Greece while all the folks were fleeing across the Mediterranean. So certainly there was a mental health aspect to that for sure. In Tinian, which was in the Maldives, we were doing mostly emergency medical type work, setting broken bones, staving off infections, that kind of thing was mostly what we were doing. There's also, by the way, even if you're not a medical person, there's always roles for logistics people as well. It helps if you have some medical training, so you know what the doctor is talking about when he wants a specific thing. But there's always a role for logistics personnel.
So how often do the international folks go out?
That depends. It definitely depends on how many disasters happen and where they are and whether the community wants us to come out. We are tied into the World Health Organization, so when there's a need, they call on us, but it is very dependent on the need and how many other countries in the area can respond to such a thing. So it really does vary. That it's, medical response in the international waters, that's really expensive too. So it kind of depends on how good our fundraising's going.
Yeah, and speaking of which, how do you raise your funds?
Well, we do have a lot of corporate sponsorships. For example, Home Depot gives us tools in kind donations. There's the Bob Woodward Foundation has been supporting us for years. I think since we started, actually, but at least a third of our donations comes from very small donations from individuals. We ask that people go out online to teamrubiconusa.org and make a donation if you can at all. If you can't make a donation, go to our website, go to our Facebook, go to our Twitter, pull up the little thing that says we're raising funds and share it with your friends and see if somebody else out there could support us. Because disaster response is not cheap.
No, I can imagine it is not. And flying people here and there and everything else. What are some of the things that you really want the listeners to walk away with in knowing?
Well, number one, it's really easy to sign up and join the team. Become a part of the Team Rubicon tribe. You won't regret it because we're fun and we have a great mission. You'll gain new friends, and you'll find it. Well, it's really as close to the military as you can get, but a lot better because the whole work hard, play hard thing, we actually mean the play hard part. It's not just a joke. It's a great organization, and you'll have a sense of fulfillment that many of us don't have after we leave the military.
Is there an age limit?
No, absolutely not. We have people involved who are Vietnam vets. Some of our hardest workers are actually in their 80s. If you have physical disabilities and you're not able to do some of the heavy lifting, we do have roles for people who are not as physically capable as others. There's always paperwork to get done. There's plans to be written. There's logistics to plan. There are databases to update. Disaster assessments quite often don't require a lot of physical labor. So we have roles for everyone.
Well, it's been an interesting morning this morning, and I appreciate you calling in this morning, Ann.
Well, I appreciate you asking me to do so, Ed. It was great.
Thank you very much. And listeners, how do they get a hold of you, Ann?
Oh, you can sign up at teamrubiconusa.org. You can certainly get a hold of me personally. I'm at, the easiest thing is my email is Ann with an E, Ann.Scott@teamrubiconusa.org.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
So thank you very much for listening to Veterans Heartbeat. We'd not be able to bring it to you without all the support of the listeners. And thank you again to Farside Signs for sponsoring the show. If you do need a unique vehicle design, swing on by and check them out. Also, thank you to our main sponsor, River. River has an array of services such as veterans-focused education, a vestibular disorder clinic, and now non-pharmaceutical treatments for pain, anxiety, and depression. Check them out on Facebook or on the web at riverofchange.org. Lastly, we'd like to show our appreciation to all of our veterans. Thank you for serving our country and keeping it safe.